Hello, everyone. Today is January 25th, 2022. I'm here today with Jayden Tran. Jayden is a product designer. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Jayden.
Yeah, thanks, Harush. Hello, everybody. My name is Jayden Tran. I am a product designer over at Disney. I am working on the enterprise content platforms team at Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution. Yeah, happy to be here.
Hell yeah. Um, so you and I are from the same fraternity,
hmm
and so we know each other from school. And you were in visual. What was your major at UCSD?
Yeah, so my major at UCSD was visual arts and media. Basically, what I tell everybody is I know how to make a Hollywood level film from start to finish. So my focus was in cinematography and sound design. So got a little bit of exposure to everything.
Nice. Where was most of your classrooms held?
Damn, I totally forgot the building name, but like the visual arts building kind of nearish to the front of the school, like by where like the bus stops were at, kind of near Ravel. Yeah,
Is it
so
near the auditorium?
I would say so. I totally forgot what the building was like called, but
I
some
forgot
classes,
too.
yeah, like we have a visual arts department, so mostly like the smaller art lecture classes were there, and then when I did anything related to like media or design, it would be in like the media and communications building that was where Mirror parking lot was at. So I think they demolished that parking lot. So yeah, it's
Wow.
been a while. Yeah, yeah. Seventh college is crazy. I drove by it last year and I'm like, holy shit, it's crazy. It's huge.
So you were a product designer before you went to UCSD, correct?
No, no. So, um, basically, how I got into my career, was like, I'll give you the story. I'll tell everybody. I've always been like really interested in art as a kid, and so I remember like the first time somebody kind of like validated my artistic abilities was when I was in kindergarten. So that was during the September 11th attacks, and I kind of like made a drawing of the World Trade Center, New York, all that stuff. My kindergarten teacher, Miss Nagashima, she really liked it, and so she actually laminated it and gave it to my mom. And then I remember my second, third, and fourth grade teachers, they all really they thought that I had an artistic ability. And so my second grade teacher, she told my mom personally that like, I think your son should like pursue like, like a career as like a comic book artist or an animator. So I had always like done art as a kid, growing up. And when I was in high school playing Call of Duty a lot, shout out Modern Warfare 2. That was probably the best Call of Duty of all time. Um, the YouTube scene was up and coming at the time with esports and everything like that. So I wanted to join a lot of teams, but I wasn't too competitively like pro level at Call of Duty. So I found other ways to kind of join teams. So I there was always like plans were always looking for either players or video editors or graphic designers, and so I got an interest in design probably when I was like around like 13 years old. I was very interested in like conceptual art for like video games and stuff like that. I remember one of the first books that I bought was from this artist called Darkin. He is a concept artist for Magic the Gathering, the card game, and so I wanted to do that. So I bought a tablet, um, and I remember talking to a friend in the Call of Duty clan that I was in at the time. He was a really good graphic designer, and I asked him how much it was to get a YouTube background, and he told me it was $20. I was broke as hell, and I didn't have $20, so I'm like, all right, whatever. So I just went on uTorrent. I looked up Photoshop, and I learned how to crack Photoshop, and I used YouTube to teach myself graphic design. And so did that with my tablet, did concept art, speed drawings, uploaded that to YouTube, gained a bit of traction. Um, knew a lot of people within the Call of Duty community, just through gaming. And I think like within a year of me starting graphic design, I had Optic Paul, who was the team manager of Optic Gaming at the time. He reached out to me and he was like, "Yo, I really like your stuff. Like, I want to hire you to do a t-shirt design for Optic Scumpy, who was the #1 ranked player at the time on the MLG competitive circuit." So did that for them, got a lot of exposure through that. I also was hired on by like Team Envy for their YouTube team in order to do like graphic design for a couple of like their snipers. And I met this one sniper. His name is Michael.
What's a sniper?
Have you ever played Call of Duty?
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So yeah, I sniped a lot. So yeah, like sniping was like one of like the biggest things in Call of Duty, in terms of like how hard it was to use the sniper compared to normal guns, because one shot, one kill. Um, so yeah, I met a friend in Envy. His name is Michael. He was like one of their top players on the team back at the time, and he and I became pretty close. And he actually helped me kind of pivot my career over to UX and product design. So yeah, did work for Team Envious, and then I was hired on by Quantic Gaming to do branding in social media for their StarCraft 2 teams, and they're pretty good at the time, so I became close with a lot of players on there. And so, yeah, I always did freelance graphic design during high school, worked on my skills a lot, and when I went over to UCSD, I actually transferred in, and I was kind of dumb. I thought the major was more like design based, um, but I had a choice between media and speculative design, and I didn't want to choose speculative design because I didn't really know how it's going to play out because it's speculative. Um, but yeah, I chose media. I didn't know how to use a camera at all when I came to UCSD. The first class I had, I was like, "What the hell am I doing?" But I didn't transfer out just because I thought it was really interesting. And so stuck with that. And then, yeah, when I joined SAE, I remember I joined because I met Rocky and Cole at a rave in like 2015. And then I rushed, and then I basically sold myself by saying like, yeah, I can do all of you guys. It's like graphic design and all that stuff. So ended up doing all of the graphic design for SAE at the time, for all the social events, and then also for Powder Puff back in like 2018. And I think that really
Nice.
stood out to me because we were able to raise like $15,000 for the Morse Cancer Center at UC San Diego Health. And so really saw my design kind of like make an impact at that point. And then, yeah, like I studied, cinematography. I graduated, but I knew I didn't want to live in LA because even though I loved my major, I didn't really see myself like working in Hollywood at all. So I moved back home to the Bay Area, um, did graphic design. I was a design associate over at Minted for a couple of months. And then after that, I was a visual designer at eBay on eBay advertising internal team. And then after that, I was a graphic designer for One Life Prints, which is like a small vehicle and print shop down in Gilroy. So got to work on like a lot of really cool things. Kind of like I made a full on marble wrap for my boss's Maserati at the time. Um, did a lot of work for some clients like specialized bicycle components. I made a digital matte camo wrap for a Baja 500 racing truck that I saw race on live on TV. So super cool to see that. And then I made a custom Williams Martini wrap for a Porsche Cayenne that was used basically just to like take off road, and like somehow that Porsche got featured in I believe it was like Porsche Pan America magazine. So saw my designs on live on TV, saw my designs in a magazine. So
Nice.
yeah, it was super sick seeing all that stuff. But I was honestly getting paid way too low. Being a graphic designer, like they paid like I don't know, $18 an hour. And I always felt like it was very subjective. And so over time, during that job at One Life Prints, I got really bored with the job. I started learning more about UX design on my own, and I hit up my friend Michael, who I knew from Call of Duty days. And so he was working as a UX designer over in Japan, and so he kind of helped me a little bit with like trying to figure things out. But yeah, I basically just went out, bought a bunch of books on UX design, started reading up on my own. Applied to Tradecraft, which is it was a pretty known product design school over in San Francisco at the time. And so it was basically like a 12-week program that trains people to work at like high growth startups. So I joined Tradecraft as a product designer right at the beginning of COVID. COVID started going down and we went fully remote. And then Tradecraft kind of fell apart because the founder forgot to tell us that the school was $75,000 in debt. So wasn't supposed to take on students at all. The city of San Francisco was trying to shut them down. And so after that, I applied to General Assembly for their user experience design immersive program. And so I did that for 3 months from August of last year or August of 2020 till November of 2020. Spent a couple months job hunting, and I was able to land a UX and web designer role over at Hire Troll, which is a Series B startup. So did that for a bit on growth and marketing teams. Saw my designs make a really big impact since I was the only designer there. And then it helped increase the revenue from 14 million over to 27 million by the time that I was leading the design team for both growth and marketing. And then, yeah, I was trying to move over to product design position, but I didn't really feel like they had a growth path for me there. And so I started looking elsewhere, started applying, got interviewed by a VC firm, couple of startups, and then finally by Disney. And so, yeah, that's how I landed in my position right now. So I'll be starting at Disney as of next week and working on their internal enterprise tools for content platforms.
Wow, that's a pretty detailed experience.
That's kind of as short as I can sum it up. So usually the story that gets everybody is like, I didn't want to pay $20 for a YouTube background. I downloaded Photoshop and learned the whole career myself. And honestly, that gets like the interviewer laughing at every single interview. So that's kind of like my small little punchline there. So yeah, I had a
Which
really good
interviewer?
experience. Pretty much every single one. I think as of so far, I have not ever not gotten a job offer when I get to final stage interviews. There's only one mark on my record, and that is because they weren't really ready yet in terms of hiring a junior slash mid-level designer, which I'm at right now, since they only had a principal designer and they weren't really ready. But then again, the company that I really wanted at the time, they said that they're going to reach out to me by the middle of this year to see if I'm still interested. So who knows?
What's the difference between a junior level designer and a principal designer?
Yeah, so principal slash like staff level designers are probably like the highest level that you can get in product design in the individual contributor growth path. Like when you get to a point in your design career, you either decide whether you want to be more of a managerial role or an individual contributor, which is what I'm doing now. So junior designers and mid-level designers usually they work on kind of like more of like smaller things like form fields. You can work on a lot of like user flow. So day-to-day responsibilities include like user research, user testing, turning out wireframe, sketching to wireframe to high fidelity prototypes, and then learning to validate all that. So I use a bunch of different research methods, whether it's from user interviews or like comparative analysis, affinity mapping, doing everything for like analytics and all that stuff, and then also having final design files and prototyping everything, making sure all the interactions are right for all the flows and the wireframes, and then making sure that that is good in order to hand off to engineering to build. So that's more kind of like junior level stuff. When you get up to more of like principal level design, it's more bigger thinking questions. So always like kind of like how can we basically create a platform that would allow for like let's say like more engagement for the users, or like how would we create something that would have the users do this. Like, how can we also think of what the user wants, but then also the business aspect of everything? Like, how can we get our company enough revenues to make, the shareholders happy, the investors happy, but then also the users happy? So a lot of like more broad level thinking, and then also building out design teams in terms of like principal level designers kind of like take the lead on a lot of like the bigger projects. So they'll work with like the product managers and the engineers in order to make sure things are getting built, how the organizations are structuring out, and then basically trying to figure out the hardest problems in terms of like, yeah, how to gain revenue for the business, and then also how the product can be the best product that it could be for the users, and continuously iterating on that over and over again, and then releasing the product, and again testing, iterating, making sure everything is good, like driving the design system, driving engagement, thinking more about kind of like service design, content design itself, interaction design, how like information architecture and everything is like going to be laid out. So yeah, that goes into every single software and every single thing that you use on the internet. So pretty fun to use, or yeah, just to do in general.
Product design goes into every single software that we use in general, and even a lot of hardware too.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say in San Francisco Bay Area, product design is specifically for digital products. So let's say like we're using Google Meet right now, right? Somebody has to sit there and design all the interactions and think of every single interaction that you might potentially use or do before you actually use it. So even though you look at it and it looks like a pretty simple interface with like, I don't know, like 7 or 8, 9 buttons at the bottom, they have to think of whatever flows that you might do and how each and every one of those interactions interact with every one of the other interactions. So something as simple as this can possibly have hundreds to thousands of like tens of thousands of possible pathways um, of interaction. So yeah, in San Francisco specifically, product design is on digital products, whether it's on like, SaaS platforms or no code platforms, enterprise, AI, crypto space, anything like that.
Absolutely. Design goes into everything, and it matters for us too. Like, it's really like nice design integrated with software is like very pleasing compared to poor design. Like the Apple user interface design was killer.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that too, because I still remember when the iPhone was first released back in 2007, and Steve Jobs basically blew away every single company by saying the future is not using like pens, like styluses on phones, as a lot of other companies thought. But he built everything. Apple itself is a design led company, and because it is a design first company, like they put thought into everything, and that's why Apple is like the top company in the world, right? Um, just because Steve Jobs was so revolutionary that he knew that the future was gesture based interactions and flows for touch surfaces and not styluses. So a lot of people like I remember like the keynote at that time blew everybody away, and product design itself as a field really became product design because of the iPhone. Before the iPhone, the field was more known as like HCI, which is human computer interaction. And so from that, UX design and product design kind of came out of it because of the first iPhone release. So it's still a relatively new field. I think the only school I know of so far, I might be wrong about this, that has an undergraduate program in digital product design is Stanford University. Everything else you have to go to like Carnegie Mellon for like HCI or Georgia Tech. Um, in order to study this. And so, yeah, it's a very, very unique field. And I would say I had a really good experience with everything just because I had so much design experience as a graphic designer and a visual designer before. When I switched over to product design, it was relatively easy for me just because all I had to learn was like the research method and everything like that. Like my graphic and visual design skills were already pretty well rounded. And so a lot of people that I either meet, either in boot camp or like later on, they struggle a lot with like the visual design skills, which is kind of like the last step in building everything out. And with design and with art in general, like it takes years and years and years for you to develop an eye for good design. Like it's not just like, oh, okay, like I think this looks good and all that. Like, yeah, it's a very subjective at that point. But what makes a good product is not just how pleasing it is to the eye, like how good it looks, but how well it functions. Like, does it solve the actual user problem at the end of the day? Like, does it make your life easier to do the task that you have to do? Right. And so, yeah, product design itself is like not just making things look pretty on the screen. That's why I left graphic design, right? I was like, I'm not getting paid enough, and it's very subjective. But product design is very objective in the way that like there are a lot of problems that users are facing, whether it's within mobile platforms or web-based platforms. And like now there's things like AR and VR and more audio-based platform like Clubhouse. So
What's
um,
Clubhouse?
Clubhouse is I think back in like 2020 and 2021, it was like the biggest app for like audio chat. So they kind of revolutionized that space, and everybody was on Clubhouse because it was very exclusive. You could only join Clubhouse if you got an invite from somebody already in Clubhouse. And it's basically you go on the app and you can listen to people's conversations live. So a lot of like, the biggest tech leaders and venture capitalists would use Clubhouse to have conversations and talk. And it was like you're listening into a live podcast at the time, and you could interact with the speakers as well. So yeah,
Twitter does that now.
yeah, because Twitter stole the idea off Clubhouse.
Yeah. All these
Yeah.
ideas just get stolen. Like
Uh,
Instagram took
Instagram stories.
stories.
There you
Yeah.
go. I mean,
Nobody
what doesn't
uses
have stories?
Snapchat. I mean, some
No,
people
no.
do, but not like they do Instagram.
Interesting story about Snapchat. Funny you mentioned that. Even Spiegel, the guy that started Snapchat, he was at Stanford. He was in the product design major, and he got laughed out of his undergrad class because he presented the idea of Snapchat. He said, "What if there was basically an app that can take photos and it would disappear after 24 hours or 10 seconds and stuff?" He got laughed out of his class, and then he dropped out and made Snapchat.
Wow.
So
And he got very rich.
yeah, and then he came back to Stanford. I think he finished his degree too. So
Wow.
worked out.
That worked out. I mean, he didn't need to go back to get his degree for sure.
Yeah, I mean, shit, dude, you built Snapchat. That's it.
You're good. You don't
Like that's it.
yeah, your validation is set. You can probably get any job after that. If you
Yeah.
really wanted a job after that, other than owning Snapchat or owning a company.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's like what's really great about the startup ecosystem in general. And we can definitely pivot into like, talking about like venture capital from there. Just because it's very, very interesting how kind of like everything works, right? So let's say like, you become a CEO of your own company, and you're either like once you get past the initial startup phase and you're more in the growth phase, like it requires a lot of like a different mindset from growing the company to actually like growth stage, right? And so either your company gets acquired or you actually go through with it and build out the company more. And so like what do you do, right? Let's say you get acquired and you have a bunch of money now, you have millions of dollars, and it's like, well, what's your option? So you can either go, and if you really love building products and solving problems, then find another problem space or stick to that and build another company, or you can have your millions of dollars and either become a venture capitalist or a angel investor. So um, my founder at Tradecraft, his name is Russell Plusis, and he introduced me kind of like to the whole entire VC ecosystem the first day I joined. And so he himself is a an angel investor who just like invests like anywhere from like a couple $1,000s to a couple 100,000, to even like millions, right? Like there are angel investors who are known as super angels who do that into early stage high growth startups, and it's really risky. Obviously, that's what venture capital is in general, but that industry itself also is what created technology in general, right? Kind of like how the history of like the Bay Area, I think it was like Fairchild Semiconductors, like the people from that they left, and I think like they like a couple of people created international business machines. I could be wrong, but you know, IBM, HP, and stuff like that. Some of the first tech companies, and then they would kind of like turn around and contribute their money that they made to other people who eventually left from that and decided to start their own companies. So um, that's kind of how everything kind of came to be. It was always a way of like people giving back to people and helping out as much as they can. So the earliest people would, you know, invest money into these startups. These startups would grow, acquire a lot of people, create jobs, create, you know, the things that created modern technology, and people would leave their company and like they would just keep investing, and then the cycle goes on and on and on. And so that's kind of like how the history of Silicon Valley and venture capital came together, right? And look where we got now. We have iPhones out of this, right? Like the Sequoia Capital, which is like probably the most famous VC firm in the Bay Area. They invested in Apple, right? So Sequoia, without Sequoia Capital, there would be no Apple, right? Or someone else who I think is like a really good VC, John Doerr. He he's a partner over at Kleiner Perkins, which is one of the most well-respected VC firms, and he invested in Google and Amazon before they were actually Google and Amazon. They needed funding, and so yeah, it's kind of crazy just to learn the history and how everything plays together, driving the startup economy in the Bay Area. And that's what I love about being in the Bay Area and living here for the most of my life is you can't really replicate this economy or this ecosystem anywhere else in the world. Like you can try, and a lot of people have tried, but I really don't think it's possible just because of the amount of talent, the amount of people who are very dedicated to their work and really try and figure out kind of like the world's hardest problems and how technology and software can solve that.
Do you think people have left San Francisco though? Because
Oh yeah, for sure.
remote
Yeah,
work has changed it, and the extremely high implementation of it has changed how people network.
100%. I think I just read an article like a day or two ago where like U-Haul literally ran out of U-Haul trucks because of people leaving California. Like that's a shortage right now. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I do think a lot of people are leaving California because of remote work. I think remote work is here to stay. I really think, you know, almost 2.5 years into this pandemic that um, it's really not going to change. People are a lot more lenient with, you know, workers working remote, and productivity has actually gone way up, and people are in control of their lives, like especially people with children, like they're able to spend more time with their kids. They're able to really kind of like balance their life more. And at least for me, I've been working remote since the pandemic. I've had a lot more time to, you know, set boundaries, have time for myself. Like I can go in for a walk in the middle of the day. Like I don't have to stress out about, you know, long commutes or anything like that. Like when I was working at Minted in Oakland, my commute was like an hour and a half, right? So I don't need to worry about wasting time anymore. I can just log onto my laptop, join my meetings, get work done, and as long as I get everything done, like there's no problem in that. So I think the pandemic has created a lot of disruption in a lot of good ways, to be honest, because people are more free to live their lives, and like employers finally like realize like, yo, like we don't need a full-on office space for this to happen. Like I do agree that I would like to return to like a hybrid model because I believe in-person collaboration is very important, especially for the design and product team in general. But then at the same time, like at least for Disney, like we have 30 different design teams all over the world. We have 3 enterprise teams, and like my boss is over in Connecticut, right? And so it's able, like we're able to work with a lot of different people, very, very talented people, and still get work done. And especially now, there's so many tools that foster online collaboration, like Figma, which is the design tool that I use. It's probably one of the best things that has ever been made, to be honest. Like I don't use Adobe stuff anymore. I solely just use
What's
Figma for like
Figma?
Figma. Yeah, check it out. It's figma.com. So Figma is kind of the industry standard for UX and product design right now. So it is a web-based platform um, where you can go in and you can design. And the thing that separated Figma from everything else um, is real live like work collaboration. Like you can have like 100+ people in one document designing live at one time, and it's all web based. You don't have to download anything. You just go on Figma, and it's all on the browser. And that thing completely disrupted the full entire design industry because people were
Wow.
using Sketch before. Sketch was like the default, like
Google Sketch?
no. Sketch is a company that makes a software called Sketch that was solely, I think it was only on Mac, it wasn't available on PC, and so, that was kind of like the industry standard for product design a couple of years back. Figma came out of nowhere. It was started by Dylan Field, who was at Brown University. I believe he got $100,000 grant from Peter Thiel, from the Thiel Fellowship to drop out and work on Figma. And so he dropped out, worked on Figma, and he disrupted the whole entire design industry. Like Adobe couldn't like keep up. Like Adobe has Adobe XD, which is for experience design, but even then, it didn't offer real-time live collaboration on the web. And so
Wow.
it's a very David versus Goliath kind of battle. Like Adobe has always been the forefront for everything design related, like web-based or not. And
Yes.
then Figma came out of nowhere and destroyed Adobe. Like,
Destroyed it.
yeah, every single job interview that I've gone through, like for the most part, if the company is modern, like they use Figma. Netflix uses Figma, Uber uses Figma, Facebook, Meta, Instagram, like every single top design company in the world uses Figma. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's good to
yeah,
know.
they have a $20 billion valuation right now.
Wow. That's
20 bill.
huge.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Are they a publicly traded company?
Uh, Not yet, I believe. I don't know when they're trying to IPO. As of now, I think it's only private VC funding. Um, but no, I believe that they are one of like the top 10 kind of like highest valued startups though. And that can also be a thing because like right now, I believe the highest value is ByteDance, which owns TikTok, right? So TikTok is the number one startup in the world right now. I think valuation is probably over 150 billion at this point. Um,
TikTok's a privately owned company.
it is a privately owned company. It's a startup.
Is is it in China?
It is in China, but there are teams working in the US. I know because my friend is a recruiter at TikTok. So yeah, he's
Okay,
getting paid
because
pretty well. Yep.
there's a lot of I mean, people blatantly say don't use TikTok all the time.
Oh yeah, like I don't use TikTok, but like it's because
What's the reason you don't use it?
I already distract myself enough with Instagram.
Got it, got
I
it.
don't need another attention span to or I don't need another product to shorten my attention span. So you notice how like with Instagram when you log in, there's like at least a loading screen or anything. And I believe with TikTok when you log in, it throws you right in the middle of like the videos and the reels. So people's attention span are becoming shorter and shorter and shorter, and that is designed on purpose. There's a thing as like dark UX and all that stuff where you know let's say for an example, like I remember Uber. Example of dark UX would be like when you go and order an Uber and you look at the price that's crossed out. Let's say what example would be 19.99, and the price that's like highlighted would be like 19.50. So if you're not paying attention, if you're not looking at that properly, you think you're saving a lot of money, but you're not really saving a lot of money. And so a lot of these products, like, yes, we all know that like Instagram, Facebook, and all that stuff, it's designed to be as addictive as possible. And that's like a huge problem. Like, there's a reason why the notifications button, or like the notifications on Facebook, are red, right? Red gets your color, like red in terms of color theory gets your attention the most. And so
Yes.
it's all designed to be as addictive as possible, because if the product is free, and I'm quoting this from that one social media movie that was in like 2020 that like blew up on Netflix, right? If the product basically is free, then that means like you, the user, are the product. Like the companies are getting data from you, right? Like Google is free to use, and the world's like information is free for you to discover if you just go on google.com. But what's the trade-off, right? Like, you're using that for free, but Google itself is an advertising company, right? Like, it's an advertising business. It's not exactly software. And so they're gathering all your data, they're gathering all the analytics, and like where you're at, where your location is at, how long do you stay on a web page, how long do you spend looking at this web page, what do you look at the web page, what's your interactivity with the web page, do you buy something, do you not buy something. And so all that data is gathered by these companies and, sold to other companies for money and for profit, because that's how they market to you. So I'm pretty sure you use your iPhone, and let's say like you and me are talking about like, I don't know, Apple Watches, and then suddenly when you go on Google in the next 5 minutes, you'll see an ad for Apple Watches, right? There's a reason for that, right? Your microphone on your iPhone, if you don't turn it off fully, even Siri, it listens to cues around you in a social context. It listens to background noises, it listens to speech a little bit, and then it formalizes those contextual cues in order to advertise products that it will think that you would like. So, yeah.
Wow.
hmm It's
It's
all
a
designed that
scary
way.
world.
It's very scary. And so, at least I feel like with product design, now that I'm working at it, like I have kind of a civil responsibility to not create something kind of like that, just because I believe suicide rates for teenage girls are the highest that they've ever been, and that's because of Facebook and Instagram. Like, they're comparing themselves just because of the algorithms that are being um, utilized, right? Like Facebook's algorithm on likes and all that stuff, right? Facebook's algorithm specifically, like, it will show you more posts on your news feed that have gotten more angry reacts. Like, it prioritizes those rather than posts that have like the like react or love react or anything. So the algorithm behind Facebook actually prioritizes that because user engagement is a lot higher. And that's kind of like an issue. I believe that's been going on with like the January 6th Capitol riots as of last year, because Facebook had a hand in that. Facebook, Twitter, everything. These communities that revolted against um, the U.S. Capitol at the time, they're basically gathering and using these online forums and platforms in order to plan them out, right? And so that's why there's a whole big entire ordeal on that. And so at the end of the day, it's like you're asking yourself, well, who's responsible, right? Like, is it the people who are doing it? Obviously they are, but then also like, how did they achieve this? Like, what content, what platforms, and like how did these platforms aid to their unionizing and banding together in order to pull something like that off that threatened our democracy? So,
Yes. And it's global too. The Arab
oh yeah,
Spring was started in a similar fashion through Facebook.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you think about it, software changes the world for sure.
Absolutely.
Every single industry has been disrupted by software, um, for the most part. But then at the same time, it's kind of like you have to think, well, what are the negative outcomes and results that comes from all of this, right? Like more depression, more addiction to your phones and all that stuff. Like, I know for sure, like I look at my screen time, and it's been way higher than it's ever been during the pandemic, just because I'm not able to go out and see my friends a lot, right? So I'm relying more on like literally this piece of glass right in front of me, because that's my only way of interacting with people who are hundreds of thousands of miles away from me. So yeah, it helps in terms of keeping connected, but at the same time, it's addictive. And me working in it, I know how addictive it can be. So yeah.
Yes. It what do you think is the solution to that addiction?
It depends. That's kind of the answer to everything in UX and product is it depends. I don't know if there's like a full on solution, because working as a product designer, I have to consider user needs and wants, and also stakeholder goals, right? And then also business goals. Like my job is to make sure that the company that I'm working for, the business itself, is staying afloat and getting money. And sometimes, depending on whatever business it is, it's like you design things to be more addicting or more beneficial than the business, or like for the business rather than for the users. Like you'll probably notice how Instagram, they moved the like button, um, I believe, yeah, over to like the top right. And so they added another button in the main bottom navigation for like shops and stuff like that. And why is Instagram doing that? You just got to think, it's like, okay, well, they're doing that because they want more engagement on their platforms, and they see that people and content creators and influencers are using their platform as a way for them to market products. And they're like, oh, they got a light bulb off to the top of their head, and they're like, well, why don't we just make this into a shops platform? And so now you can go on Instagram and literally buy products straight from Instagram. I don't do that because I'm more picky about what I buy and all that stuff. But it's like, for sure, it's a way to get more engagement, and it's a way to get more people to stay engaged and stay on the platform, because that just means more money from them, because they're able to advertise to you more, right? I'm sure you've seen, scrolling through stories and stuff like that, you've seen way more Instagram ads than ever before. So there's not
What's the
really a
reason for the
solution.
increase?
They want money. It's a business. Right?
Got it.
Yeah, it's a business. The
What do you
investors
think
want,
about
yeah. Go ahead.
subscription-based services?
Oh yeah, I
Like
like them. Yeah. Everything's subscription-based model now. For the
not
most part.
social media.
Social media is free. It doesn't need a
Social
subscription.
media is free. But what if it was subscription-based?
I mean, that's what's happening on Twitter right now. I think Twitter Blue is a paid service. It's like $2.99 or something.
What's Twitter Blue?
I'm gonna Google
No
this real quick.
no
I don't.
advertisements?
Yeah, no advertisements on Twitter, but I mean, I use everything with ad block, so I don't see ads anyways.
What's ad block?
It's a built-in browser extension for like Chrome and everything that blocks all the ads you see on the internet. I've been using it for like 6, 7 years now, so I never ever see ads.
What types of ads do you never see?
I just don't see ads in general.
Really?
Like, yeah, like I just go on Google Chrome and it's a nice experience. Like I never see ads. Like I think ads are
Oh,
very distracting. Yeah, so I don't like, I do everything to cut myself off from like advertisements and all that stuff, just because I mean, companies are gonna pay other companies and software to display their ads on their software so then they can get more people, right? Like it's all marketing. It's all marketing, it's all product and all that stuff. So um that's why tech itself kind of has a bad rep when it comes to all this stuff, right? So
what's all this
yeah.
stuff?
I mean in general, like making things more addictive, making people become more addicted to their devices, making them. I mean, like right now, Facebook and the metaverse. I hope that's never a thing. I think the metaverse is kind of like, but is it really good for your mental health if you just put on a VR headset and go into the metaverse and live in a virtual reality like that? Like, why not experience the real world, right? Like, time is short, right? Like, money comes and goes, but time is the currency that you'll never get back.
That's
So,
true, but honestly, like, what if you watched a movie in the metaverse and that's it? You were just in the movie for 2 hours That's it. You go into a theater, there's a bunch of VR headsets everywhere, and it's just you go there for a couple hours, it's more thrilling than a movie, and then you bounce.
I don't really know if that would be possible because one, if you're using a VR headset, you're able to look around and see all the virtual space around you. Two, movies are shot specifically with like, cameras right now where you're able to see everything on a 2D surface. So if thinking about it, if you're able to take a movie from 2D to like three-dimensional like that, where you're fully immersed in it, I'm sure people have done the experience before, but that kind of ruins everything. That ruins cinematography because there would be no cinematography. How would you view the movie? Would you be directly in the middle? Would like you see all the characters around you? Would you be able to see every single battle scene or like whatever like is going on in
That's
the
all
movie, right?
product design. That's all design, right?
When it goes into this, like that would be more of like movie based. Like, let's say you go in an IMAX theater, you get to see everything on the screen and it's immersive. But if that's a VR thing, then aren't you able to move around in that space? And even then, if that was a VR thing, you yourself personally would not be in the movie. Like it wouldn't be like you're in the movie experiencing it as a third person inside of the movie, right? Like the movie is enjoyable because it's a storyline, it's edited, it's filmed a specific way. Everything is made a certain way, right? Let's take, for example, like a one shot film where a film is shot from start to finish in one shot only, right? And those films are framed specifically in a way for like the audience to experience that. So the whole entire experience of a movie is viewing it through the lens of the audience in the fourth wall. If you're inside the movie itself, that kind of takes away the whole experience of being in the movie because now you're in the thing, right?
I
And
disagree.
how so?
Have you ever seen Microsoft has a virtual reality helmet as well, and they have a uh, clip. It's a scene. It's
Hmm.
nothing. It's a scene of you're in the ocean and you have
Hmm.
like a 4x4 place, 4x4, I don't know, 6 by foot place to walk. And you're
Hmm.
just in that spot and there's nothing about it. You're not immersed in it. You're
Hmm.
not anything. If you look straight, there's a amazing whale
Hmm.
swimming. It's only about a minute
Hmm.
long,
Hmm.
swimming from the left down to the right. If you look down, there's like a ship, like just a sunken ship, and
Yeah.
there's like sharks everywhere. And this is only a minute long, but
Yeah.
it was incredible. It was like just for some reason, this clip was incredible. And that's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining like there's even going to be a seat there, and like people will just be able to get up from the seat and then walk over, maybe do a little bit, maybe not. May actually they have to be up because they have to see three-dimensionally. But that's kind of what I'm imagining. And
So let me ask you this in return. How would you make a movie out of that? Because a movie is viewed through the lens of a camera. So how are you able to make that
so
into a movie?
what would you what do you consider that clip?
An immersive experience. It's not a movie. A
Then
movie is
a movie, okay, then
a movie is an
okay, no,
immersive
sorry.
experience.
Exactly.
Mhm,
So then let's not call it a movie. Let's call it. I mean, I think it's a virtual reality entertainment. I mean,
mhm.
video games are an immersive experience too. So
Yeah,
that's a
they are.
very broad statement. I feel
No,
like
but
it's a virtual reality movie. The same as a virtual reality video game would be like you doing the same thing, but with some sort of ability to bring in signals. But this is like just virtual reality.
mhm.
You have no interaction with it. You're just viewing it. There's
And
that's
so imagine how they would film that. Is it possible to film that? Is it like
most of it
there?
was graphic design. I mean, this doesn't have to be filmed. This could all be like an animated movie made from Pixar. And
Yeah,
then in and it's going to take a lot more work for sure. There's going to be a lot more, really, really down to the detail, work in the API field and all that jazz. But, and like, I don't know if you've heard of the company Unreal Engine.
I do. I have, yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's going to be a lot to go on over there, but that's, that's what, and the Unreal Engine I don't know if you've ever used it. I've used it, and it's like they have options. It's like virtual reality movie, virtual reality video game, regular movie, and that's the type of thing I'm thinking about. Like that whale obviously wasn't filmed. That was a
Mhm,
digital. That was completely digital, but it was incredible regardless. And some of the most beloved movies are all animated. So it doesn't
mhm.
necessarily need to be filmed, but
Now let
it
me
could
ask you
still be a
this.
movie. Yes.
So if, let's say in context, we're talking about the animated movie, like Pixar. So what makes a movie a movie? You're viewing it on a screen and you're seeing it through the lens of the director and the cinematographer. And they show you specific shots to make things more dynamic or to tell the story in a better way. And so let's say now you're in that virtual world. Let's take Toy Story, for example. If you're in the world of Toy Story as a third person viewer, you would not have that movie experience because yeah, you can see that characters interact with each other and let's say like you can walk around virtually and see all of that, but you're not seeing it from the viewpoint of the camera itself. And to me, that's not exactly a movie. And I'm curious because like you mentioned Unreal Engine and the movie. So I wonder, viewing a movie inside Unreal Engine, like in VR, like when you go into it, would the movie still play on a flat screen in the virtual world, or could you actually be in it? Because what I believe is when you're actually in the movie itself, one, it takes more to produce and all that stuff, of course. But let's say just for like animation's sake, like you're not able to view things from the director's viewpoint, and that
Actually,
is the full
I
thing for the
dis
movie.
I disagree with what you're saying because go referencing back to this experience I had with the whale
Hmm.
again, it's like a 6 foot by 6 foot area. There's a
Hmm.
massive 100 foot whale, 100 meter whale right in front of you. So it's not like you're swimming from this side or walking around the whale or going down into the shipwreck. You're in a very limited space where it's
Yeah.
like it's the same thing to what you just said. Whoever designed that was like, okay, where do we want this perspective? What experience? So, okay, it's just the director's job as far as placement is not done. If anything, it's been massively expanded
Hmm.
because now they have to look at every single angle. Now they have to say, okay, I'm gonna keep my person right here, but now instead of having this two-dimensional screen where they can only see maybe 33%, maybe like 120 degrees of like the full radius around them or the full circumference around them, then now it's not that like so like imagine that circle is going to be like 2 meters long. The circumference that you're or the like say it's like a 2 meter long radius. The radius you're going to give your user is going to be like very small, like point 0.1 0.05, and then like it's not necessarily that the like there's still a lot like so like that's the thing that draws them too. It's like now you're gonna have to base like audio into the headphones based on the way they're directed. Now
Hmm.
you're gonna have to do like what's gonna draw him to see what I want him to see over there right when it happens,
Hmm.
and what's going to draw him back over here. So like so you see that sunken ship, oh, there's nothing in the water right now. So I'm looking at the sunken ship because it's there. And then all of a sudden I hear from my right side, because I'm if I this way, because I'm looking at the sunken ship, this is only coming in from my right side. Whereas if I was turned this way, the audio would only come in from my left side. And then you have to determine that based off of the way the 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 screen's going. And then once it comes in from the right side, then I realize, oh shit, I got to look this way. And then you see this whale coming through, and that's
Hmm.
kind of it's all like the director, designer, or like I don't know what that would be, but even director makes sense to me, saying, okay, he's going to be planted right in this small little, like imagine a shark cage
Hmm.
in the middle of the ocean. You're not traveling very far. A whale can swim like it's whale's much bigger than a shark cage. So he's all like, he's got this shark cage, and then we have to show him like, where do we want him to look? Why is he going to look there? And I think there's a lot of potential for those types of movies. And like people would, I mean, you need to. I don't think Microsoft has stores anymore, but that was incredible what I saw with that whale. Like this was like in 2017 or 2018.
Hmm. Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah. I believe they still have stores. But yeah, let me ask you. So, if you're able to view that inside that certain box, then can I ask you like, how would edits look, or like how would time lapse look, right? Because a thing about movies is like it tells a story. That's the whole point of a movie. It tells the story through a lens. And so, let's say you're able to view that lens within that virtual reality, like how is it going to be like imagined? You would lose that magical movie aspect of seeing it through the lens of the camera and the director and what they want you to see, and you're able to view it in this whole entire immersive experience. But like I feel like at the same time it takes away from the movie itself, like in terms of a traditional movie with cinematography and everything. In terms of storytelling, it probably can be done. It's very, very ambitious, and it probably can be done. But kind of like again, at the same time, just like questions about, okay, if they want you to see the specific scene in this specific direction, wherever you're at, how would you piece that all together? How would you still make that an immersive experience between cuts and edits and everything? And then especially with sound design too, just because I worked in it, we designed everything to come in specifically from a certain angle, and we imagine everything as a three-dimensional 360 spatial space, right? And so it's designed specifically purposely for sounds to come in whether certain ways or how loud it is. And all the sounds in movies in general, like it's all Foley, right? Like everything is scrapped and they rebuild every single sound up, and everything from where it's at, when it's cued, how it's going in, same thing with dialogue and all that. And so
I
maybe it
don't
could be done,
understand. It's
hmm,
already been done. It
but
like
it's
I
not a
saw
movie.
this.
That's not a movie. I wouldn't
It's
say
a
that's a
short
movie.
clip. This
Yeah, it's a clip, but it's not
honestly,
a movie. It's not a movie because a movie has
but
a story. Hmm.
I Jayden, you just extend this thing by 90 times. It's going to be 90 minutes. You add some storyline to it, and then you just cut out. It's like so you're wearing a screen, so you just like kind of blank out the same way that you would a movie, and then you go into a new clip. I mean, I don't understand. It's the same thing. Like it's sure, it's clip, it's 1 minute long, but that's because this is difficult stuff. This is difficult technology to integrate. Venture capital just threw like, and this was also like 4 years ago, venture capitalists just threw billions of dollars into this technology. So what I'm expecting is for this clip to be extended to the length of a movie, and for that to be something different, like for it to be like me, like in Toy Story. I don't, like you just imagine like you're just like there, like flying with Buzz Lightyear and Woody, like, and you're just like they're there, and you're like exactly where the camera is. But the thing is, like, you're gonna be hearing everything that Buzz Lightyear is going on. You're just gonna be flying right by them the same way that the camera would, but you're gonna have that background over there too. but there's absolutely no reason to look in that background. There's going to be very little detail as much as like what's right there, and it's going to be highlighted. And that's like, I don't, like the cuts and edits, I don't think that's a very difficult thing. Like Unreal Engine, like it's the same. Like I don't think there's much difference between a Pixar clip cut and edit than there would be a virtual reality cut and edit. It's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. It wouldn't be like that big of a difference, but
it's just more like, do we want to call it a? I think it's still a movie, honestly. The same way I think a VR video game is still a video game. I just
well,
think it's a different form of media you're watching it.
in the video game space, depending on the video game, right? If it's like a sandbox video game where you're in it and you're able to move around and do that, it's very easy to replicate that in VR because the world's already built out like that. But like, let's say for a movie, in scenario what you're talking about, flying with Buzz Lightyear and all that, let's say, oh, okay, the background is built out and it's not as well built out and all that. Like you can look there if you want, but that's like it's not the main point because the characters are highlighted. I just think it would take more work than a lot of these companies are willing to do, and especially because like animated films like Pixar's and stuff like that, like there's a lot of work to go even into the background and small details like that. So
Jayden, you're
it
wrong,
could be.
bro. It's
I
if you're
I, I
saying
wouldn't say
people aren't
so.
gonna if you're saying people aren't gonna put in the work, dude, that's not
I'm not
people
saying people
will,
aren't gonna put in the work, but I'm just saying, why
dude,
would you want to live in something like
someone's gonna
experience
put
something
in the
virtual?
work. Someone is gonna, because dude, I was dude, you literally have to go. Have you ever put on a VR headset?
Yeah, I was in my major. We had the biggest VR reality lab in the world. So yes.
Okay. Obviously, none of it compared to what Microsoft put out, because you need to go to I'm sure there's one very close to you. Go
Yeah,
to a
there's some.
Microsoft store, ask to use their headset, ask to see this whale, and then like, dude, it blew me away. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this was only nine, I'm sure if you're Googling it, you'll find it. It was
I am.
only a minute long clip.
Mhm,
And I was blown away by it. It was the most incredible thing I've ever been a part of. Like, it was
mhm.
not true, not true. It was an incredible piece of media to ingest. And with that, I was like, easy, easy. And Mark Zuckerberg did the same thing with Oculus. He was like, "Oh, this is incredible. Let me invest
No,
a
it is, it
lot of
is.
money into it." And dude, movies for sure, bro. Watch it happen. It might not happen in 5 years. It might not happen in 10 years. It probably will happen in 10 years. But at least 25 years down the line, like this will at least have been experimented for sure. And I think it'll be big
Oh, for
too.
sure, for sure.
I think
But
it'll be like everyone will have like their own little space set out. It's gonna, or like there's gonna be like some small thing where you can put up a space, some like standard amount of space that all movies are like, all right, people get this much space. It might not be a full 90 minutes, but I mean, they call, then you call it an episode. Then you say, all right, you just call it a show. And you know, then people put it on and they're just going to be entertained. Not going to be any feedback, or like
mhm.
not going to be like a video game where it's like, let's, you got to shoot something or play something. It's just going to be like, no, you there, you can watch, you could probably even sit down on the ground, I would guess, and just look back, and they're just going to be like, all right, primary position is that way. You can turn around if you want, but like 90% of it's going to be right in front of you, which could even be more like a movie aspect. I don't know.
But can I
But
ask you something? What
yes,
intrigues you so much about the metaverse and being in this virtual reality of the metaverse itself? Not VR itself, but the metaverse specifically.
dude, people love video games on a two-dimensional screen.
I don't play games
And
anymore.
You don't, but that doesn't mean that some of the other 7.2 billion people in this world don't.
Exactly, no, exactly. But I mean,
And
since we're so glued to our screens all the time from this pandemic, like, what makes you think people would want to be even more immersed in the virtual reality world when
that's a
I feel like the real world is more interesting?
that I don't understand what your argument is. You just said that people are heading towards more screen time, but the world is more interesting. So why would they go? It doesn't matter if the world's more interesting. They've proven they're going to screens, so they're probably going to keep on going to screens.
I'm
And
against that though, because I
that
feel like
doesn't
why live in a virtual world when, all of life is around you, right? Like, I feel like that's just kind of, I don't know,
dude.
like, it can't be good for, like, the mental health of people, and I know this for sure because I was listening to a
Our
podcast with a.
conversation is virtual.
Oh, yeah, it's
We're not
virtual.
even in front of you. I'm literally in my home by myself. I don't know if you are. There's not a human being in the room with me.
Yeah, no, no,
This
no.
is virtual.
You're not
Imagine
understanding
if
me.
this is the metaverse. Do you like thi I literally read a tweet. What if Zoom was the metaverse the entire time? This is the metaverse. Imagine you just put VR on, and we're literally in the same room. Imagine you have like a
I know,
grandma that
I
lives
know.
in Vietnam, and she's just like, "Oh, let's put on our, whatever, our metaverse." You'll probably have a camera there too. That's the metaverse, and
No,
people
I
would
know,
do it
I know.
instantly. That is what the potential is here. It's a real thing. It's not like
I'm not saying
freaking
it's a fake thing.
Inception.
I'm not saying it's a fake thing. I'm not saying
It's
it's a
not
fake thing.
no, I think your view is that it's like Inception, where it's like, all right, people are
No,
gonna get addicted. Yes, some people will get addicted
I'm
because
not
that's
talking
their
about
nature.
addiction. I'm
It
not
is
talking about
addiction.
addiction or anything like
You
that.
just said screen time addiction. Is what you're not mentioning addiction to the screen? I believe that's
Yes, I
addic
mentioned Kurush,
that's the
Kurush,
entire
I
thing.
need you to stay calm with me. I don't need you to raise my voice at me just because we have opposing views on this. So I would like you to ask, or like I would like you to ask you to respect my boundary there. Kind of like what I'm trying to bring up, and I understand your point of view. First of all, thank you for sharing. I do understand that obviously, the metaverse being able to be in it, interact with somebody specifically in that VR space in front of you, you're able to do a lot of things you weren't able to do before. That's probably the closest thing to like teleportation where we can get to, right? Like, I can talk to you virtually in a virtual environment across the world. But it's like, would you like let's say, yeah, I'm at home in San Jose, you're in San Diego, and we're talking to each other virtually on the screen because we kind of have to. But would you prefer to do that on a VR headset rather than me flying down there and visiting you in person?
The
If you had
cost of you are you gonna th how much is the cost of you
Let's say
coming
cost
to
is not a
visit?
factor. Let's say cost is
I'm
not a
s
factor. Would you
I'm
prefer
sorry.
to interact with me virtually rather than have me be in front of you in real life?
I'm sorry. We have to end it right there. I don't accept cost is not a factor.
No, I'm
Cost
saying
is
theoretically. Theoretically.
no, I don't accept theory right now. You, this cost is the number one thing that
Mhm.
drives the world around.
True.
We just spoke about venture capital 30 minutes ago.
Yes, we
We
did.
cannot, I will not, my entire argument is cost. The reason for the metaverse being real is cost. We cannot say ignore cost. It doesn't matter if you and I want to be in person. It really doesn't matter because you live 400 miles away from me. And
Mhm.
until one of us is going to go book a flight, book a hotel, take the time to come in person. It's COVID too. COVID's still raging.
Yeah, of
I mean,
course.
I just I don't accept ignore cost because cost is the reason that the metaverse will exist. Yeah, I would love to be on a beach in Cabo. I would love to. It's not
Mhm.
possible.
Hmm.
because it's high cost. It's very high cost.
So you would do that virtually
It doesn't matter if I would
and
do it
still get the
virtually.
same experience of the ocean or the sands or feeling all that or feeling the heat around you. Like, I don't think you can replicate that full experience virtually. Like, it's in front of you, but being physically there will always be something different that I feel like it's different. Like, let's say, like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to give you a handshake or a hug virtually. Yeah, we can do that virtually, but like, you won't feel it, you know? Like I won't physically feel your hand when I shake your hand in the virtual world. Like, I just think that there's something missing to that component. I do agree with you that, like, cost might be an issue, and this is why we're implementing all of this. But then at the same time, it's like that physical human interaction that we are all deprived from,
Jayden,
right?
at the beginning of this podcast, one of the first things you said was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was the greatest game of all time.
Yes.
Would you ever want to be in warfare? Would
Not the
you
real thing.
ever? Let me just say how, okay. So, exactly. Exactly. So,
But
you're
that's like a
telling me
completely different aspect though.
no.
It's like
No,
warfare
it's
is one
not.
thing.
I'm
Like,
sorry, but you're saying that all things are joy? No,
I'm not
there's
saying all things are a
I'm
joy.
not saying I'm not saying hold on. Let me speak. Let me speak.
Go ahead, go ahead.
You are speaking, what if I would want to hold your hand? What if I would want to be with you? These are all good things. You know what? What if you want to watch a sad movie? What if you want to play a video game that's completely about warfare? Are you going to go and be like, oh, I'd rather experience this in person? What if you want to watch a movie about warfare? What if you want to go watch 1917? What if you want to know what happened, how Hitler, went about the Blitzkrieg and all that? Would you
Hmm.
want to be physically there? No, you
You're
wouldn't. You would
you're
want to experience
taking
it.
what I'm saying out of context completely
No,
though.
but we're talking about movies. We're
I know,
talking
oh yeah.
about movies.
No, I'm
Like
talking
this
about the
is
metaverse and the movies inside the metaverse.
I'm just talking about one aspect of the metaverse. You're talking about like this immersive, like, dude, the issue with everyone's like thing with the metaverse. It's like it's not gonna be like our life. Like we're not gonna be like. So it might, like if I, it's not gonna be like, oh my God, this is our whole life. It's like, no, you can choose to go into the metaverse for like an hour a day if you'd like, and
I know.
2 hours a day. And then you can walk away the same way you can do it with our screens, and the same way that a lot of ancient scripture has said about a lot of things. Addiction is the root cause of all of it. If we are addicted to our phones,
Hmm.
it's going to be the same thing then, just like the same thing it was way back when. But this like thing, like that, like, yeah, maybe there are some things, obviously, like one of the big ones, pornography. Pornography will be probably really big in the metaverse. Pornography is a terrible, in my opinion, is a terrible, terrible influence on people who abuse it. You know what? The metaverse will probably have a bunch of pornography in it. And for the people that use it in that way, that will
Hmm.
probably be of even more detrimental than the internet pornography is today, which I believe is extremely detrimental. And
Hmm.
I think
I
so it
agree.
will probably be more detrimental. But you know what? That is their problem because there have been people who abuse those types of things before there was the internet.
Oh
And
yeah.
it doesn't like it again comes to root causes of principles, values, and ability to constrain yourself and withhold this immediate sense of gratification.
Hmm.
And that does not matter if it's on a virtual reality headset, if it's 1813 and there's nothing out there, if it's, 5 years after Jesus Christ died. It's just that the tools in front of us are way different. And like,
I mean, what we're doing now would not be possible even like 20, 30 years ago, right? Like
And
you're
that's a
talking to me on a screen.
blessing. That's
Yeah, it is a
a
blessing. I
blessing.
agree. I agree, but
So
like there should be limits to everything, right? Like
and
I
who
would still prefer to go fly down to San Diego and have dinner with you and talk to you one on one rather than being on a screen in front because like it's not the same, you know?
it doesn't matter because neither of us can afford you can't afford that.
I
It
can't afford that.
really
But like health wise we can't do that, right? But
it's not even necessarily that healthy, like to go out on a plane and go sleep in the house for 3 or 4 days that you don't even like sleep in regularly. Like I believe there's like a lot of circadian rhythm stuff that doesn't hit when you go out to some like random house. So it's all perspective. Like,
mhm.
I granted too much phone time. I do too much phone time. I do too much screen time, but
We're all
like
guilty of that. Mhm.
we're all guilty of that, but there's a lot of things that people have been guilty of for a long time. And I think this demonization of electronics is, a little out of hand because now we're taking the responsibility out of our own hands when it's my problem that I'm on Instagram too much because at this point I know it. Why is Instagram on my phone if I'm so obsessed, if I'm so over it? Why is Twitter on my phone if I don't want to check tweets in the middle of the day? It's honestly at the end of the day, there are influences in our life that we cannot control. And
Mhm.
one of the
No, I know.
primary ones we can control is what apps are downloaded and available on our phone. And, a lot of people love Instagram. I love Instagram. And there are definitely some, abusive, not necessarily, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, there's some things that they do that really kick into our hormones. But like, I'm free to delete it at any time. You're free to delete it at any time. And that's the same thing with all these VR apps. And unfortunately, for a lot of things like pornography, if it's been abused for too long, it is very difficult to kick.
Mhm.
And that will probably not change. And, you know, it's just something that we have to be aware of because I
We have
don't
to be
think
aware
it's,
of
it does,
everything.
we have to be aware of everything, but that's
Mhm.
impossible. This one, you know, technology isn't going anywhere. It's going
Oh
to be
no, we're all
more in our
grown.
face, and we have to be accepting of it because I think we have to be accepting it. We definitely have to be aware of where it can go wrong, but
Okay.
I
Let me
th-
ask you this, since like we just went to CrossFest a couple months ago. I don't know if you've seen like videos of music festivals in the metaverse, but let me ask you, would you rather attend a music festival in the metaverse or in real life?
it depends on the cost.
I would say cost is not an issue, but let's say if you're a millionaire, you have all the money in the world, and you can go to any music festival you want, anywhere you want. Would you still
It
prefer
hon-
to do that in person, or would you prefer to do that in the metaverse?
it honestly depends on the cost at the end of the day. And I don't mean that in like a sense of how much I'm going to pay. It's like, how much is it going to cost me to go out to this place, spend 3 hours at this place, go to this festival, and then come back? Whereas, what if I went to a metaverse festival? I don't know. I really don't know. It depends. I have
Yeah, it
no
depends.
clue.
It depends. It
Because
depends.
this is the metaverse. This is the same type of metaverse. What if I'm having a meeting with someone? I interviewed to work at a company where their whole product, they had one product. It was just a virtual office and you
Mhm.
all had avatars and then we all just were in your office,
Mhm.
virtual office, and if you walked in the same room, the audio would link up.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was the same thing. Like it all came back to cost and like that's it really depends. Probably if and this is the thing, I go to Crossed because it's right there. Because I sleep in my bed the same night I go to the concert.
Mhm.
Because I take a trolley to the concert from my home. I don't even drive. I just
Mhm.
trolley over.
Mhm.
So again, like that's the reason I go to Crossed. I love Crossed because it's so easy to get to, whereas I don't go to LA for the fantastic I've literally never gone to an LA concert. I'll go to my first one. Not at least that's not true. I haven't gone to an LA concert since I moved to San Diego
Hmm.
and which was 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. And um I'll be going my first one in April, but that's the thing. I mean, that's the reason we're here. That's what makes the money, that's what makes the world go around. That's why you and I have salaries because of cost, because people care about cost and people who provide products care about cost and are very aware of it and where they can see there's a cost on the user that a product that they want to create can alleviate that cost, the user is going to migrate over to their product and then uh you know uh, stop putting money into the whatever high cost was there. So it's really really tough to say let's ignore cost when it really is the driver of everything.
So let's not ignore cost. And do you think it's possible for all, I don't know, 7.5, almost 8 billion people on the planet to go out and buy a VR headset and then also have that connected to an internet? Let's say
That
about in like
doesn't matter.
Africa, right?
2009, did everyone have an iPhone?
Not
2008, did everyone have an iPhone?
not
I mean,
everybody has
that's
an
a
iPhone right now.
It so that's again, I don't understand what the argument is here. It doesn't need to be across every single person. It's just
So
whoever
it's not being
uses it.
inclusive,
It
right?
is having blue messages on your text being inclusive. I love blue messages on my text. It's not inclusive. There's bunch of people I text who have green messages. Doesn't matter. I still love the blue messages. Still love people. Still what I got a new contact today and that person had an Apple. It was they tried to airdrop it to me. They
Hmm.
tried to airdrop their contact to me and I
Hmm.
got their whole contact. That's inclusive. There's a bunch of people out there with Android, but you know what? I love that. I love how that person can just link up with me right like that. And
Hmm.
so again, that's a mute and that's the most successful company in the world.
Hmm.
So it's a mute argument if it's not inclusive. Hopefully it will one day be inclusive, but I mean that I don't know that's not a good reason to I don't think that's a good argument as to why this won't be a very influential and actually productive technology for many people. For some people who don't know how to, you know, honestly, I think the root cause is addiction and just lack of self-control, who don't have a high rate of self-control and who do have an addictive personality, yes, it's going to be tough, but so is having an iPhone. So is having a lot of things, you know, there's drugs everywhere in this world. It's not hard to get any drug that you want. If you have addictive personality, that's where you're going. It's not hard to get a hit of dopamine on Instagram. If you have an addictive personality, that's where you're going. And you know what? If you have an addictive personality, you probably hit the addictive things that are available on in the metaverse, which I'm sure will be even crazier than what's available on the internet today. But there will be a lot of cost savings for a lot of people in a lot of fashion, and there will be a lot of entertainment value. And so I don't think that this is going anywhere
I'm not
besides.
saying it's not going anywhere. I think it's awesome that technologies are being implemented in that way.
But you're
But
saying it's bad, but you're not happy
I'm
with it.
saying it's no, 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 no. I'm not saying I'm not happy with it. I'm saying I would rather go out and go for a walk in the park and enjoy nature and enjoy the vitamin D provided by the sun and fresh air rather than going into a virtual reality. Not saying that I don't like that as well, but it's like for me in my free time, in order for me to like recharge, I like going out into nature and just being able to experience that. Like when I was down in San Diego, I would love to be able to go out to glide before cliffs all the time and watch the sunset. Like, to me, nature is everything, right? Like it gives me energy. And so I'm just saying, of course, too much of anything is bad. But then I feel like if the metaverse is like too much of a thing, then I don't think it's a good thing on mental health specifically, right? Like there's a whole another kind of like, arguments or debates or anything like that on like obviously what we're saying how it could be inclusive and stuff. But let's say what happens if I'm blind? How am I going to access the metaverse then?
I mean, how are you gonna text on a phone?
Exactly. But like at least I can find my way around the world with braille and everything like that, right? So I don't know. I feel like the metaverse has a lot of potential, and I do agree with a couple of the things that you were saying about how it can make work easier. It can make accessibility to a lot of different places a lot easier. But at the same time, I feel like there's something remotely human about staying connected, being in front of each other physically. Hopefully soon, if COVID will become an endemic and we're able to talk to each other in person again and do all that again. Because like, yeah, for me, designing software and all that stuff, sitting in front of a computer screen for 8, 10, 12 hours at a time every single day, how I recharge is I have to get away from that, right? I have to take myself out of the space and go into nature or just enjoy where I'm living and not have to think and not have to interact with anything. Just enjoy the world for like how it is. So
I
yeah.
agree with that, but that's a whole nother. I mean, you just bringing in like I love nature too. I love hunting. I love bow hunting. I love going
Hmm.
out to the Balboa Park and shooting my bow.
Hmm.
And but I also love Instagram. I love Twitter. So like I mean, I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. I mean, I don't even think it matters that we like these things because a lot of people don't like these things. And I mean, yes, I mean this isn't the argument though. I like being in nature too,
Hmm.
but like I didn't think, you know, we're not really I'm not really talking about that. I'm just saying,
No, I
the
know. I
metaverse
mean,
is going to have a huge impact on our lives, regardless of whether we live in Montana in the middle of the mountains and we love hunting and we love nature and we love all that, or whether we live in the middle of San Francisco or San Diego and really can't find it, that much nature nearby. It's going to have an impact on especially American people in the workforce, people who like entertainment, people who purchase video game systems. I mean, I think it's going to be like a company like Netflix is going to come out with theirs. Maybe it's going to be Facebook, and they're just going to like just do like maybe not that won't be for like 20, 30 years, but like it's just going to be like movies, 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 movies. And same thing with like video game stuff. So we should probably get off of the metaverse. Are there any other topics that you feel we talked about design, we talked about
design,
venture
VC,
capital,
all that, metaverse.
and way too long for the metaverse.
No, but I think it's a very it's a really interesting discussion, and we definitely should talk, more about it at a later time. Like I know I have to hop off
Yes.
in a little bit, but no, I think that there's like, obviously valid arguments that you bring, the valid points that you bring. Um, but then again, I feel like, yeah, there's there's a lot of potential for things like that. But at least for me personally, I feel like there's kind of something special to be grounded in the real world itself, right? Because what's the main point of the internet? What's the main point of our phones? What's the main point of social media? What's the main point of the metaverse? It's to stay connected, right? We've been able to stay connected and interact with each other in ways that 50 years ago didn't exist, right? Like I can't just pull up a screen and call you 50 years ago or anything like that, right? Like phones came out because we wanted to talk to each other when we're thousands of miles away or anything like that. So I feel the positive sides of the metaverse in terms of how it can further connect humans as of like right now, because we're so far away from each other and we can't see each other in person because COVID. I feel like that has a lot of potential. But then on the downside, I feel like it also takes away from us being able to really physically connect and be in person. So it's a double-edged sword, as with most things, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I view it. So there's always good and bad things with everything, and not to say that I don't support the metaverse, I do, but with everything, there should definitely be limits.
My guest today has been Jayden Tran. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Jayden.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Karuch, and yeah, hope to see you guys soon. Thanks for listening.